भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भगवती सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Text number 22 onwards. Purusha prakriti sthohi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangovasya sadasadyoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So, living entity, like in the previous verse, Krishna explained that nature is said to be the cause of all material cause and effects, whereas a living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So, living entity desires, and the nature provides. Did we cover that verse 21? I don't think we did.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mata, Hare Krishna. I don't think we did 21. Okay, let's do 21. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे हेतु प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुष सुख दुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. Okay, I think we did cover when we discussed about, because of different desires in different lives, we have so many unfulfilled and so many partially fulfilled desires, and then because of that, material modes of nature take over and they give us different kinds of body. When he's put in different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. Just like Prabhupada says, if somebody is put in the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. So the soul is not dog, the body is dog, but because of his desires, he's put into that body. So he has to act like that body only. So this is that becomes like he cannot control his nature. He has to act like that. So text 22, Krishna says, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entity transmigrates from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. So, undesirable circumstances, when we are in a body and we identify ourselves with that body, although we are not that body. That's that's an undesirable situation. We don't want to be there originally, but because of our desires, we have no other option. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances. Yet he is under the influence of material nature. So he thinks he is the master of the circumstances. As a bug, also, he thinks, I am the controller. Obviously, he wants to be the controller because we all are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is supreme controller, Ishvara Parma Krishna. We also want to be controllers. We forget we cannot be the controllers. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It's due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. So this is the process to stop that cycle of birth and death. Because of our material desires, we'll keep on taking birth in different kinds of bodies. But if we become Krishna conscious or at least start becoming Krishna conscious, one thing that will definitely happen is at least we will get human form of life. Exceptions are always there, like Bharat Maharaj case. That is an exception. But general rule is at least we will get the human form of life so that we can continue with the process of bhakti where we left it off. That's why Krishna says in second chapter, Neha Bikram Nashosti Pratyavayu na Vidyate. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhyat. A little progress on this path of yoga will protect one from the biggest type of fear. And what's the biggest kind of fear for a person who is on the path of yoga is to go down into some other body in which he cannot perform this process of yoga. That's the biggest type of fear, to go down in some other form of life, lower form of life. But in case of Bharat Maharaj, although he got the body of a deer, where he still performed the yoga, because even in the body of deer, he was still going to the ashrams of all the sages and listening to Krishna Katha over there. So that way he didn't. There was no obstruction or no obstacle in his performance of yoga. So the biggest fear one is that death is not the fear. We all have to die anyway. But after death, if you go in lower form of life, that is the biggest fear. So by performance of yoga, Krishna says that does not need to worry about that. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. So, more we reduce our desire to dominate the material nature, more we will enjoy spiritual happiness. Or let's look at the other way around. More we enjoy spiritual happiness, more we give up the desire to dominate the material nature. Why? Because then will develop kind of a different attitude towards material nature. Attitude not of any bad way, but in a way that we will understand. She's also energy of Krishna, and our only desire is to engage her in the service of Krishna. So more we advance in bhakti, more we desire to engage everything, not to become our enjoyers ourselves or controllers ourselves. That's the difference. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. So more we are in connection with Krishna, more we are serving Krishna, more we enjoy that blissful life, and more we give up our desire to control the material nature. This is going to happen automatically. Text 23. Updrishta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramatmeti cha apyukto dehe asmin purushah paraha. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. So in this body, there are two knowables. One is soul and the other is super soul. Now Krishna is talking about that super soul also. So the super soul, he has two functions. He exists as overseer and permitter, Updrashta Anuvanta. It is stated here that the super soul, who is always with the individual soul, is a representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity, because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one. They think that there is no difference between the super soul and the individual soul. But there is a whole lot of difference. This Mayavadis or Nirvisheshvadis, they think that there is no difference. But here Krishna has cleared that right in the shloka only. He says the super soul is the observer and the permitter. So we are not, the soul is not the observer or the permitter. We cannot permit anything that we're going to sanction something to happen. Not going to happen. It is stated that the super soul is always the individual soul. Okay. To clarify this, the Lord says that he is represented as a Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendent. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as finite enjoyer or as one taking part in bodily activities, but as a witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. So this is a position of super soul. He is a representative of Krishna, and he is not enjoying or taking part in these bodily activities. What the soul does, Paramatma just sits on the side and he watches it. He is a witness. And he permits, sanctions, the soul desires. It says, no, man proposes, God disposes. So this is what he does, depending upon the karma, the bank balance of karma of the soul. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and he is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and Paramatma are different. The super soul, the Paramatma, has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual souls desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is bhukta, or the sustained, and the Lord is Bhokta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and He's staying in them as a friend. So this is another quality of super soul, that He is the maintainer, and the individual soul is being maintained. And there are innumerable living entities. Even in this room, there are innumerable living entities, but to speak of the whole universe. And super soul, Krishna as super soul, he's sitting in the heart of each and every living entity. That's how amazing he is. The fact is that every individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And both of them are very intimately related as friends. But the living entity has a tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate nature. And because he has a tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. So we have the tendency to dominate nature because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So to dominate nature, that cannot happen in the spiritual world. It can only happen in the material world. So that's why we are called Tatastha Shakti, marginal energy. Means we have independence to choose whether we want to be in the spiritual or in the material energy. The moment we want to dominate, we are put into the material world. Okay. You cannot dominate the spiritual world, but try dominating material world. So here when we come, we forget our real position. We try to dominate over material nature. Material nature in return, she kicks us. She gives us so much of trouble, tribulations, distresses. And then we finally figure out, okay, this is not my real place. My job is to serve Krishna, serve his energy, not to dominate. And that's when we try to go back to the spiritual world. The living entity can be sustained either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend, so Super Soul, stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. So this is the ultimate aim of the Supreme Lord, that he wants all of us to go back. Then he sits as Super Soul within our heart to guide us how to go back. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the living and individual entity is continually rejecting the association of the spiritual light. This misuse of independence is a cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature. So this independence, because Krishna is supremely independent, he gives us independence. Many times people ask, if there is God, why there is so much of distress in the material world? Why people are suffering? Why there is this? Why there is that? Well, it's independence. Krishna has given to every living entity. Why? Because Krishna is supremely independent. He has to give his part and parcel, the minute independence. Otherwise, there is no question of developing love for Krishna. If we all are like robots, where is the question of love? Only in movies robots can love, but in real sense, they cannot. And this is not what Krishna wants. He doesn't want us to be like robots. But we have to understand, we are like robots in the hand. We're like puppets in the hands of material energy. As soon as we desire, only thing that we have in our hands is desire. That minute desire. As soon as we desire, the material modes of nature take over and they make us work like puppets without any choice. Of course, we still have a choice. We don't have to do like that, but the modes are so heavy, so strong, they take over. Although the soul is more powerful than any material modes, but they take over. And we let them take over and we act according to the modes of nature. But our real place is in the spiritual world. And this is what Krishna comes. Krishna comes, performs his pastimes, and he's sitting as Paramatma also in our heart to guide us to go back home, back to God, to guide us to the real bona fide spiritual master. If we take shelter of him, if we follow his instructions, we can be on our way back. But that independence is still there. That he never takes away. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instructions from within and from without. From without means from outside. He gives instructions as stated in Bhagavad Gita or in the form of the spiritual master. And from within, he tries to convince a living entity that his activities in the material field are not conducive to real happiness. Just give up and turn your faith towards me. Then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance towards a blissful eternal life of knowledge. But these desires, material desires within us, are so ingrained from millions and millions of lifetimes. It's so difficult to just give it up. Prabhupada is very easy. He said, just give it up and turn your faith toward me. Our desires are so strong, we cannot just give them up. Of course, then it takes time. That's all it is. So the idea is more we engage ourselves in the path of bhakti, more we engage ourselves in the practices of bhakti, in our sadhana, in the service, in the association, in the process of chanting and hearing, then more we develop that taste, and slowly we develop a distaste for material, for fulfilling those material desires. It's not that one runs away from his duties, it's just he doesn't want to. He has no interest. But still he does his duties as a matter of duty, as a matter of setting an example. That's a different story, but he has no taste for it. And that's when it is that he has developed taste for serving Krishna. That means he is making progress. Just give it up and turn your faith toward me, then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance towards a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Then he begins to advance. So that's how we make the advancement. Text 24. Ya evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunah saha sarvatha vartamano api nasa bhuyo vijayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So the idea is to understand the philosophy properly. Understanding means also implementing it, also following it practically. Clear understanding of material nature, the super soul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. So the purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly persons, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to the spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of God. So this knowledge is very, very important. Then it is certain that he will never come here again into this material existence. He will be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. So that is the path, that is the position we all want. But for that we have to develop this knowledge that this material world is actually a place of misery, and this is not my place where I'm supposed to be at. Text 25. Dhyanenatmani pashyanti kechidatmanatmana anya sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. So there are different methods like Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. They are all different methods for perceiving the super soul within us. The Lord informs Arjuna that the conditioned souls can be divided into two classes as far as man's search for self-realization is concerned. Those who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are beyond the sense of spiritual understanding. But there are others who are faithful in their understanding of spiritual life, and they are called introspective devotees, philosophers, and workers who have renounced fruitive results. Those who always try to establish the doctrine of monism are also counted amongst the atheists and agnostics. In other words, only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding, because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded as the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone, the all-pervading Godhead. Of course, there are those who try to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth by cultivation of knowledge, and they can be counted in the class of the faithful. So the faithful, or those who have little Shraddha, here Prabhupada said they are either Jnana Yogis, Hatha Yogis, or Karma Yogis. But the Nirakaris or Mayavadis, he said they are not even counted amongst faithful. They have no faith in Krishna. The Sankhya philosophers analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are unable to understand the nature of the individual soul to be transcendental to the material elements, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul there is a Supreme Personality of God. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually they also come to the standard of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. So ultimately, the Sankhya Yoga, the idea is, just like we were discussing yesterday, even if we understand all the elements of the material world, so the real Sankhya Yogi, the one that Lord Kapil Dev explained, is he tries to engage all these elements in the service of Krishna. He understands everything comes from Krishna, and everything should be utilized in service of Krishna. So even if a person who has the knowledge of the whole Sankhya Yoga system, and he engages everything in the service of Krishna, or even if there's a person who is devotee and he doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge, but still engages everything in service of Krishna, so both are same. So idea is to come to that understanding, not just count the elements of the material world. Here it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness, who try to find out the supersoul by meditation. And when they discover the supersoul within themselves, they become transcendently situated. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the supersoul by cultivation of knowledge. And there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system, who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. So Prabhupada's the Hatha Yoga system is what? Childish activities. And sometimes they're like gymnastics. They are bending their bodies and twisting their bodies like this or that, and they think. And after that, they sit down in meditation and try to concentrate on the Supreme. But at least that's a valid process. Tvevam ajananta shutvanebhya upasate teapi chati taratyeva mrityum shruti parayana. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he's a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because of if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, then he can make progress. Especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears a transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, then he makes progress. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduces congregational chanting of the holy names. So anybody who hears his holy name, willingly, unwillingly, or in a different mood other than being receptive to the holy name, he will make progress. And whether that living entity is a tree or a bird or a bug or animal or whatever, he will still make progress. That's the whole idea behind congregation chanting of the holy names. And the person who is performing, or all the devotees who are performing, they make a huge advancement, huge leap. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. So one could be elevated to the position of a pure devotee, not to the position of God himself. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosopher or faithful, hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend the material existence and go back to Godhead. So this hearing process, which starts a Bhakti Yoga, it's very, very important. And this is what it says in the shloka also. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Even though the devotees, even if they don't have all the knowledge of all the scriptures. So hearing is so important. Actually, I have to beg for forgiveness from everybody because I'm feeling tired today, so I won't be able to continue right now. So any questions or comments, so we can take up a question because I'm not able to concentrate properly on the workspace in the purpose.
No problem, Prabhuji.
So we can take
Thank
up
you
some
very much.
questions or comments.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
We are troubling you too much. I think it's too late for you. Keep awake
No,
there.
it's just I have to change my schedule. That's all it is.
No, please don't do
Somehow
too much.
it's not getting.
It's okay. We can solve it. We should, I think, start earlier. But before 8, I don't think it's
No.
possible.
This is okay. No. This is okay. Just whole day it was very busy today somehow.
You're okay, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Health-wise?
Yeah. So any questions or comments? Other questions or comments? So I guess we should stop here. You all have a wonderful Sunday. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Prabhu.